Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! It was a brink of snow season, and like everyone else in town, I was gearing up for it. I booked an appointment to have my tires swapped a month in advance, knowing all too well the rush that hits every tire shop at the first snowflakes threaten. The forecast for Wednesday morning was a picturesque winter postcard, which meant today, Tuesday, was absolute chaos at the tire shop. I arrived managing to park a quarter-mile down the road and trekked up to the store. The line was long, sneaking outside the door, but to my surprise, it moved faster than I expected. Within 15 minutes, I checked my vehicle in. Looking around, I noticed cars parked haphazardly everywhere, some even on the grass. They were clearly slammed. For the next hour, I waited in the packed lobby, occasionally glancing outside. It was a cacophony of impatience and frustration as walk-in customers who didn't have the foresight to book an appointment berated the employees. Each one seemed more entitled than the last, demanding immediate service as if the world revolves around them. But then she walked in. The epitome of entitlement. Let's call her Karen. Karen had this piercing stare that seemed to cut through the glass window of the shop as she waited in line. And finally her turn came, and the employee explained her two options: book for next Monday or leave her car for service in the order it arrived, which meant an 8-hour wait. Karen exploded. Her voice was a mix of incredulity and rage as she insisted she needed her tires now. She ignored the employee's calm explanations, fixating instead on my Land Rover, which had just been serviced. "Give me the tires from that black SUV," she demanded, pointing at my car. I was flabbergasted. I turned and said, "Hey, that's my vehicle. Those are my tires. Are you suggesting he steals my tires and put them on your car?" Her response was ludicrous. "Tires are tires," she snapped. I couldn't help but laugh. My tires are all-terrain, not snow tires. They won't even fit your car. Just make an appointment like the rest of us. I stood up more in disbelief than anger. Perhaps it was my stance or the absurdity of the situation, but she backed down, whining about needing snow tires, and finally left the shop. I turned to the employee, apologizing for the lost business. He chuckled, mentioning that those who followed Karen out were the same ones causing trouble earlier. He was more relieved than upset. As I left with my vehicle, I overheard someone mention that Karen had left her car in the middle of a busy highway lane right outside. The thought process behind her actions was baffling. Weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that Karen had been arrested for attempting to steal tires from another shop. It seemed her entitlement finally caught up with her. In a small town, news travels fast, and the tire shop Karen incident became a local legend of what not to do when winter comes knocking. My sister and I had our sons around the same time. My nephew turned 7 in October, and my son turned 7 next month. I was 20 when I had my son, and this was a big deal with my sister. She's 10 years older than I am, and really had no expectations when it came to me as a mom. She predicted I would end up single and my son's dad would bail, and that I would give up within the first year. Instead, we are married, and we had 2 little girls after our son. We are very different parents. My sister is very strict and regimented as a mom and has a lot of rules and swift, harsh punishments for bad behavior or any subpar behavior. My husband and I will probably fall more into a gentle parenting kind of deal. We teach our kids how to act in public, but we do so in a very different way to my sister and her husband. My nephew can be very challenging, and he's an angry little boy. I suspect it's because his parents are often angry and he's picking up on that and building resentment, which has made his behavior worse. Our parents have brought this up to my sister in the past, and she has told them that it's not true and claimed my son behaves far worse despite them saying it's not even close to the truth. Our parents have both boys on Saturday, and my sister and I arrived at the same time to pick them up. Our parents' elderly neighbor approached my sister and told her that she should have a word with her son because of how rude and disrespectful he is to others. My sister told the neighbor that she had the wrong sister and my son was the kid who got in trouble. The neighbor said she knows the boys apart and knows who the mom to each is. She told my sister that my son was very sweet and showed no disrespect the way her son did. My sister was furious. The neighbor told her that thanking someone, my son, for picking something up for her does not warrant being yelled at and cursed at by a small child. Apparently, my nephew got an attitude and told her nobody has to help her because she's old and can't do anything for herself. My sister went off on a neighbor and said her son is so much better behaved and accused her of spreading lies. The neighbor walked away mid-tirade, and then my sister started to turn on me. And instead of letting her, I said she needs to stop being so bitter and examine her parenting instead of going off on people who complain about her son's behavior. I told her I would not let her take it out on me, that she was wrong about me as a mom, and that I feel like a lot of her anger comes down to that. But she hates that I don't get the same comments. She tried to yell at me, but I just got my son off our parents and I left. My parents asked me what happened and I told them. They said I did nothing wrong, but my sister and her husband are both now coming for me for what I said, and they told me it wasn't my place to say all that disrespectful stuff. ETA, my parents are supportive, and it was my sister and her husband who told me it wasn't my place. I realize now I did not make that super clear in the end. And now some comments on a post. Someone saying, denial is a powerful lever. I think your read on the situation is a good one, and shows that you know more about effective parenting than your sister. Children's behavior, especially small children, is often a direct reflection of how the parent acts around them. Good on you for raising a kind little boy. Keep it up, not the jerk. Another commenter adds, not the jerk, but you might want to consider distancing yourself. Your nephew's parents are deflecting, looking to place blame on anyone else, and they want an apology from you so they can feel vindicated. Your parents need to decide if they want to continue watching your nephew if he behaves so badly. As I always tell my kids, if you behave badly and hurt people with words or a temper, then you won't have any friends. Your nephew is going that way, as are his parents. The third commenter goes with, not the jerk. Maybe your timing could have been better. She probably felt a bit biled on. But I also don't think that means you should have had to stand there and take her nonsense. I wouldn't say your sister is better, I think she's jealous. Maybe she wanted you to fail so she could feel good about her own choices for some reason, and as that hasn't happened, she is lashing out. Maybe she's in too deep to admit her way of parenting isn't working. Either way, I think you need to keep your son away from her for a bit. The way she keeps trying to use him as a scapegoat is not healthy. So this happened at the last apartment complex I lived in. Sorry, it's so long. My soulmate and I were renting a ground floor unit at a really nice apartment complex. I wouldn't say it was a luxury apartment or anything, but our ground floor unit had a little patio off the back that led out into a really nice courtyard area with hammocks, a walking path, outdoor fireplace/seating area, and so on. A lot of people walk their dogs out there or let their kids play out in the grass, including us. We have a 1-year-old Cane Corso. We got her when we'd be living in the unit for about 2.5 months, and she was only 8 weeks at the time. She's a really good dog and we trained her well. We could let her out to go potty and she'd come right back even if there were distractions/people/dogs out. We always stood on the patio and watched her anyway because our pet agreement said we couldn't leave our dog unattended. Then we'd go pick up her poop right away if she pooped. Also part of the pet agreement, as I'm sure is standard at most apartment complexes. We kept a small step trash can outside specifically for her poop bags because we didn't want to throw them away inside, and the only outside trash cans were on the other side of the building, which I agree is super dumb. It really was a small trash can like the kind you tuck into the bathroom between the toilet and the wall. We also had her poop bags hanging on our patio door handle for easy access, so we didn't have to hunt for them every time we needed them. This lady and her kid moved in on a ground floor in our building, 2 units down from us. No biggie. We ran into her one day carrying in groceries and my soulmate held open the door for her. She seemed kind of Karen-ish but was polite, and her kid, probably 10 or 11 years old, didn't look up from his phone. Whatever, that's pretty typical of kids these days. They also had a dog, a little black and white fluffy thing, super cute, but not trained very well. Don't know what kind of dog, but it was much smaller than our already giant puppy. After about 2 weeks or so, we realized that there were dog turds in the grass right off our patio. We found out the hard way because my boyfriend stepped in it the first time. Luckily, he wasn't barefoot. They were clearly not our dog's turd. as one, we always picked up her poop right after she went, and two, they were very obviously from a small dog, not our 70-pound puppy. We've been in the apartment about 7 to 8 months at that point and had never had an issue with this, so we figured it was the entitled mother's little dog. I wrote her a polite note that basically was like, "Hey neighbor, we noticed that some of your dog's poops aren't being picked up and are right off our patio. Per the pet agreement we all had to sign, we all need to be picking up our own dog's poop each time they go. I'm sure it was an accident and you just didn't notice. So if you could make sure to do that going forward, we'd appreciate it. Your neighbors in Unit X." She wasn't home, so I slipped it under the door and went back to my apartment. A couple hours later, this lady is banging on my door and gets really angry with me, insisting that it couldn't have been her dog and how dare I assume. I felt really bad and I apologized immediately. Said I didn't mean to offend her and it must have been someone else. She told me never to bother her with crap like this again, and she stormed off. I was like, okay. Not 3 days later, I was sitting on my patio with a book enjoying the cool weather when I saw their little dog run out of their back door. No one with it, and it came over to me. I said hello to the pup because I love pups, and then took a crap right off the patio. Ran back home and scratched the door to be let in. I saw her kid slide the door open enough to let the dog in, and then closed it again without coming outside to pick up the poop. I was annoyed because here I saw it with my own eyes that it was their dog and no one was even watching it when it was outside. So I grabbed the poop bag, picked up the poop, wrote another less polite note about her kid neglecting to watch the dog or come to check if it had pooped/pick up after it, and dropped the poop bag and a note on their patio right by the door. Then went back to my reading. The entitled mother was quicker to come by this time and stomped right up to me, waving the note around. Then stated that her kid was just a kid and probably just forgot to check. I said I didn't care. Her kid was old enough to stand outside for 3 minutes and come pick up the dog's poop. She said, well, there is no poop bags/trash cans on this side of the building, and she didn't feel comfortable making her kid walk all the way around the building for that. The next part is my own fault, in hindsight. I suggested she put a trash can like mine on her patio and leave their own poop bags handy like we do for our dog. She eyed our stuff, huffed some more, rolled her eyes, refused to do anything about the poop and walked off. At this point, I was super annoyed. I stalked my patio door for the next couple days as much as I could, just waiting. And sure enough, on day 2, in the evening when I was about to give up, I saw the puppy run outside towards my patio. I whipped out my phone, took some pictures of the dog outside alone, not allowed, and the dog pooping, and then took another phone an hour later of the poop, still there, and time-stamped all of them. Then I sent an email to the apartment office people who were always pretty nice and they responded quickly. They would give her a warning about it. And sure enough, this lady comes back again to get mad and yell at me about how petty I was to report them to the office, and now they had a $150 fine for not picking up their dog poop. It's worth noting that these fines were rare. Poop prints were not used at this complex. In order for the office to find someone for dog poop, they had to have proof it was that specific tenant's dog poop and that it wasn't picked up. Hence, the photos are taken and time-stamped. I told her that I had tried to be nice about it with her twice before, and it was her own fault at that point for not abiding by the terms of the pet agreement we all had to sign. Everyone who had a dog at least. She went off about how she's a single mom and she works during the day and her precious baby can be expected to pick up after their dog. I told her that a 10/11-year-old was plenty old enough to pick up after a dog, and that if they weren't responsible enough, then maybe the kid shouldn't be letting the dog out at all and she should be the one to do it, or maybe whoever is home with him should be looking after it. She got angry, told me I had no idea how to be a single mom, that her mom stays with him during the day and shouldn't be expected to look after her kid and her dog, and she stomped off again. I expected to hear more about it, but I didn't. The ironic part is, I am a single mom. My kid isn't my soulmate, and I raised him alone for 2.5 years before I met my soulmate. So yes, I do know how hard it is, and I live 1,000 miles from my closest family, so I never even had the luxury of being able to have my mom watch my kid. Over the next couple of weeks, we didn't find any more dog turds off our patio. But we did notice our poop bags were depleting and our trash can filling up way more quickly than usual. I had my suspicions and wanted to test it. We had recently bought some small security cameras inside of our apartment for different reasons, and I had my boyfriend set one up outside on the patio. We faced it where it could see our door and trash can, but didn't point to the rest of the courtyard or other people's units. We respected privacy around here. Sure enough, the same evening my boyfriend set it up, I saw the kid walk onto our patio, take a poop bag, walk out of frame and then come back to throw it in our trash can. Okay, now I'm pissed, but also not trying to fight this lady or her kid. So I moved the poop bags to the inside door handle. It's a glass door so you can still see them, but we always lock our sliding door. Next morning I hear someone knocking on the back patio door and I go to see her kid standing there looking annoyed. I didn't open the door, I just spoke loudly enough to ask what he needed. He demanded the poop bag for his dog's poop. I said I'm sorry but these are our poop bags for our dog and they weren't free for anyone else to use. The apartment provides poop bags in a dispenser near the trash can on the other side of the building. The kid started demanding a poop bag, saying his mom told him he could use ours, slapping his hands on the glass a few times. Trying to scare me? Yes, I am so terrified of a 10-year-old boy. And finally screaming at me that he's telling his mother on me. I said fine, go ahead. I'll tell her the same thing. Sure enough, a few minutes later his mom is standing on my patio also demanding a poop bag for her dog's poop. I denied her a bag and asked her to please step off my patio as she was making me feel unsafe and uncomfortable. My soulmate wasn't home. She told me I was a bratty child, I'm 24 by the way, and she demanded that I let her use my poop bags as I had already told her she could before. I said no, I told you to get some yourself and do what I do. Keep them close by and put your own trash can on your own patio. Not use the bags I buy with my own money for my own dog and then fill up my tiny trash can with your dog's poop. I pointed out she could use a plastic shopping bag if she didn't want to buy her own poop bags, or she could use the bags the complex provided on the other side of the building. She kept going off on me and I finally told her if she didn't leave my patio, I'd call the police as she was harassing me. The apartment office was closed on Sundays and of course it was Sunday. She acted like she was going to call my bluff, but then my boyfriend got home and walked up behind me to ask what was going on. She ended up dragging her kid away, again leaving the poop in the grass off my patio. So once she was gone, I took another time-stamped picture of the dog poop, downloaded the footage from my security camera of her kid stealing my poop bags and throwing them in my trash can, and the footage from them that morning yelling at me and demanding my bags and my denying them, and emailed all of it to the apartment management. I told them that she made me feel unsafe and uncomfortable in my own home, that she and her child felt entitled to come onto my patio and take my belongings. I also went outside, picked up her dog's poop, looked in the trash can on my patio, and pulled out the bags with her dog's poop. They were significantly smaller than my dog's poops, as I'm sure any dog owner could tell the difference in poops of a 12-pound dog versus a 70-pound dog. I went and opened all the bags and dumped the poop straight on her patio right outside the door. On Monday, I heard back from the office lady who said she would take care of it. By Friday, there was a moving truck and a lady and her kid were moving out. Pretty sure they were evicted or, at the very least, urged to move before a formal eviction process was initiated. After talking to some of our other much friendlier neighbors, it turns out we weren't the only ones who had been complaining about her. They had only lived in the complex for like 2 to 3 months before they made so many enemies they were kicked out. Sometimes I think I should feel bad for playing a part in them getting evicted, but honestly, I can't bring myself to feel guilty about it. Not my fault she was a lazy entitled witch who couldn't even be bothered to get a shopping bag to pick up her dog's crap. I never heard from her about the turds I dropped on her patio, but I like to think she stepped in them without looking and knew better than to come witch to me about it. Also, I am sure they were given more than a week to vacate, as those are the tenancy laws here. But she packed up and left like a bat out of hell. Guess she didn't want to stay somewhere she was clearly seen as an enemy.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.